Majority of you think that when it's come to open source, it's all about coding. But there is a lot you can contribute in the open source project. If you're not good in coding, there are other works which you can perform in the open source project. All of you, hope you guys are great. So this is the second time I'm doing recording with my webcam because while ago I just broke my stand and I cannot hold my phone and the camera to make the recording. So that's why I'm doing with the webcam. So if the quality is bad, and you can see the light is also blipping. So if the quality is bad, don't need to worry about the quality. We are here to discuss something very important. And recently, I've been planning to launch another playlist in that we're going to focus on the open source contribution. Because after talking to many of you, what I have realized that majority of you have some misconception, don't have proper clarity that what open source contribution exactly is. Majority of you think that when it's come to open source, it's all about coding. But there is a lot you can contribute in the open source project. If you're not good in coding, there are other works which you can perform in the open source project. So when you go to any open source project like in this one, you can see we have 400 plus or maybe beyond that users who have contributed in this particular project. But not all of them have find some sort of bug in the code. Not all of them build any kind of feature in the open source project, but they all are listed here as a contributor. So how you can be a part of that kind of project? And the one question we're going to answer, that whether that kind of contribution we're going to make in the open source product, it's valid in the terms of company. So when you will go for an internship, when you go for a job, and you will say that I have not coded in the project, but I have contributed fixing in this particular architecture or maybe this particular feature. So that's all we're going to talk about in this particular playlist which I'm going to launch. Everything you will know, that how open source contribution exactly work, what are the process, and if you want to launch your own open source, then how you can set up that entire environment so other can contribute. So first we'll focus that what is open source exactly, what are the contribution we can perform in an open source project besides coding, how you can perform other tasks. There are multiple options which you can do. Right now, if you go to any open source, you will find the name, but there are other users who are contributing in different way. We'll focus that how to find the open source project, like how you can differentiate that if you contribute in that open source project, that's going to give you impact in your career or not. Because that's kind of things you have to ask yourself why you are contributing in that project. You need to have some output from that. So that kind of understanding we're going to build, that's kind of comparison we're going to do, that which one is better and why you should contribute in that and why you should not contribute in the other project. So we're going to find the right project for our contribution, and then we're going to decide that how long we should have to spend when it's come to contributing in open source product. Because you don't need to spend your entire life just focusing in your project, in only one project. There should be a fixed time which you have to contribute. So what should be your approach when it's come to contributing in the project? Because we have a multiple approach. As a developer, we have multiple approach which you can take as a contributor. So you have to explore each one of that one by one to be a part of that contributing project. So that's also we're going to learn about it. Then we're going to learn about the process of contribution. That what is the steps which you have to follow to be a part of the contribution. Sometimes it's very hard to contribute in any project, although it's open source, but it's not that easy to contribute. If you find something, it takes a lot of time and to be a part of the system. So how you can identify that it is open source and how long it will take, how the community is active in the project. So that's all of things we're going to cover. So first we'll talk about that what is open source, then we'll talk about how we can find the right project, then we'll learn about that what is the structure for contributing in the project. After that, we're going to follow all the contribution model, that what are the levels we have in the open source contribution. So that's all things we're going to explore one by one. Okay, so I believe that you guys have got an idea that what are the things we're going to cover in this particular playlist which is going to come. Definitely after completing this entire playlist, you will be master in open source and you will know every single thing, and you can able to identify yourself that whether you have to contribute in the open source product or not, which one is good for you, which one is bad for you, which one is good for your career development or career opportunity, and how long you have to spend time in the open source. So that's all answer you will get. I have seen a lot of videos on the YouTube, they talk about the open source contribution, but they will not give you the actual roadmap, actual way of contribution, because there is a lot of things. Contributing in an open source product which is getting already used on multiple applications is not that easy. There is a lot of steps are involved. So that's all we're going to explore one by one. We'll try to make a contribution, and after this complete playlist, after this complete playlist, I'm going to launch another subsection in that we're going to focus at how we can build our open source platform. So right now, when it's come to building a smart contract, or when you come to building NFT, we use library like OpenZeppelin. How you can build your own, which can be contributed by other user, other developer on the project, and you can add more features. So if you look at the, like right now, the perfect example I can give you is the ERC20 token. So if you look at the token which we create and deploy on the EVM machines, they all have the same set of function. If you talk about the OpenZeppelin, they have the basic function, but how you can add extra function? For example, that you want to store information about the user, like whoever taking your token, whoever is selling, and whoever is buying, you want to keep the track of those all the user in form of array, or in a particular data set you want to keep it. So how you can add that kind of feature in your contract? So that's all we're going to talk about it. Okay, somehow the light is, as I told you that my light is not working properly, so let me fix this one. Okay, it's good. So those all are the things we're going to do it. So my plan is, first we're going to learn every single thing which you have to know, that how to contribute in an open source project, what are the contribution level we have, what are the things are there which you can contribute in without knowing much coding. Again, that will give you really good. Okay, there is a lot of things which we can cover. So first we'll cover every single thing, that how open source exactly work. After that, we're going to build our own project where we're going to create an open source platform, and we're going to allow user to contribute, and we're going to set a multiple process like mailing, verifications, active community, those kind of things we're going to build in that. So that's the plan for this open source series. It would be better that I would launch this particular series if I tell you the roadmap. That's not going to teach you much. You will read the roadmap and you will forget next time, and you will start focusing something else. So I decided to launch this complete playlist. You guys can follow that, and you guys can learn every single thing which you have to know about the open source. And this learning can apply on any field. Like if you are into web3, you can use that, but if you are not in the web3, in the web2, you can implement that as well. It will work fine. The process is absolutely fine when it's come to contributing in open source. So hope you guys have got an idea that how we're going to develop and proceed ahead into the playlist. In this video, we're going to cover the second most important topic in open source contribution, that what it's mean by contribute. If you are a new open source contribution, the process can be really intimidating. How do you find the right project? What if you don't know how to code? What if something goes wrong? So you have a lot of these questions in your head when you try to think about the open source contributions. But don't worry, in this video I'll clear all of your doubt. So there are a lot of ways you can involve into an open source project. The most common misconception that when you have to contribute into an open source project, you have to write code. But that is not right. You can contribute into a project in multiple ways without even writing a single piece of code. So let's start with the first one, that what is the first way you can involve into a project. Do you like planning? Then you can organize workshop meetups about the project. So you can find the similar people who are interested, and you can organize an event about the particular project or library or open source. You can organize the project conference. You can help community member find the right conference and submit a proposal to speak. So you can perform all of these three tasks if you like planning. The second one we have, that do you like to design? If yes, then you can restructure the layout to improve the project usability. Right now you can see we have a lot of project, different architecture, different structure. You can, if you find out that there is something improvement you can add, you can restructure that. You can design the menu or navigation process in the project. You can design an infographic where you can highlight that how the project exactly behave. You can create art for t-shirts or a new logo of that particular project. You can do all of this thing if you like designing. And the third way you can contribute, that if you like to write, so you can write about the project. You can write to improve the project documentations. You can contribute in the functions. Create a folder example showing how the project is used. You can start with a newsletter and start letting all the user know about the project, that what are the benefits they will get. You can write tutorials. You can write blog posts. You can transcribe the entire project documentation in multiple language. So you can do all of the things if you really like to write. And the fourth one we have is that do you like organizing? So if you find there is something over and over repeating, you can simply try to give the proposal that this is the function which is getting repeated, so you can reorganize that. Go to the open issue and suggest closing old one. So if you find that if anybody is asking questions and the question is not resolved, you can respond to that. If you like to code, then definitely you can find a open issue in the tackle. So for example, that right now if you go to the library,
there is a forum, and in that users are asking question about the issue which they are having in the project. So you can go through those all the error and you can try to ping and help them out. Ask if you can help write a new feature, automate project setup, improve tooling and testing. That's all you can perform if you really like to code and be a contributor as a coder. You can also help people. Like a lot of people ask about the Stack Overflow questions in the Stack Overflow forums, Discord channel, project channel. So you can simply go there and you can respond to their questions and try to help them in the project. So that's another way to contribute in the project. And later you can simply give that proposal in the main contributor list, where you can highlight all the problem you have solved in the open forum, and they will add you in their contributor list. Like, do you like to help other code? You can also review code on other people's submissions. So when someone will submit the code for the review as a contribution, you can simply review that, write tutorial for how a project can be used, often a mentor or contributor. So become any one of that. You can become a contributor, you can become a mentor to the user. That's how you can help other in the community. You don't just have to work on a software project. Like, while open source project often refer to a software, you can collaborate on just about anything. Like, there are books, recipe list and classes that can develop as an open source project. Like, if you take the examples, we have multiple examples like that. Like, if you talk about the awesome list, if you talk about the like HP, BP. So these are the couple of important things which you have to keep in mind, that there is a lot of things you can do in an open source contribution. You can organize, you can write code, you can help other, you can help other in review the code, you can just organize the designing, architectures, write documentation, organize event. There is tons of things which you can do in an open source contribution besides coding. Idea you have, so that's the misconception you have to remove from your mind, that if you really want to contribute, you have to contribute something big in the project, you have to write code, add new feature. That's not absolutely true. You can simply be a part of any one of these thing and you can be a contributor in the project. Hope this particular question got clear to all of you guys, that what means to be contribution. When it's come to open source contribution, it doesn't mean that you have to write code. You can contribute in multiple way. You can review, planning, designing, write, tons of other work you have which you can do it. So go to the open source project and have a look at what are the things they have in the project, and then take an idea from there. So that's the only thing I want to cover about this particular topic. With that, let's put the next topic. All of you, hope you guys are great. So this is the third video of our open source project contribution. I hope you guys are enjoying the playlist. In the last video, we have learned about that how you can contribute into a open source project. In this video, we'll try to understand that what and how we can represent ourselves in open source contribution project, because every single open source project is different from one another. The architecture is different, the tone of the talking is different, the community is different. So representing yourself in the best possible manner in the open source contribution community is really very important, and how you can take that approach, and that's what we're going to master in this particular tutorial. Let me give you a small analogy that how you can introduce yourself into an open source community. For anything more than a type of fix, like contributing to an open source is like walking up to a group of strangers at a party, and if you start talking about the limbs while they are deep in discussions about the goldfish, then they will probably look at you like little strangely, okay, what this guy is talking about. So you have to match up your tone with their tone with the topic. So understand the tone which are there in the community. If you talk about the forum, users are talking in which tone, what they are discussing, what are the topics which they are covering in the library. So understand the room. That's what I mean by that. So let's talk about some important topic which I think which is really very important for most of the new developer who wants to contribute into the open source project. Like, you have to understand the anatomy of any open source project. We human have our structure, leg, hand, like stomach, and we have a proper anatomy. So in the same way, every single project has its own anatomy. You have to understand that. So every open source community is different from one another. That's the first thing you have to keep in mind. And if you spending years on one open source project means you have got to know one open source project. You might find vocabulary, noun, and communication styles are completely different. So many open source projects follow a similar organizational structure. Understanding the difference between the community roles and overall process will help you get quickly oriented to any new project. So these are the couple of things which you have to keep in mind. Like, a typical open source project has the following types of peoples. First, understand the people, the developer who are being a part of that project. First one is the author, the person or organization that created the project. So understand about them. Then talk about the second thing is the owner, the person who has administrative ownership of the organization or repository. So understand about that. Then we have another label called maintainers, contribution who are responsible for driving the vision and managing the organization aspect of the project. Then we have the contributors, everyone who can contribute something back to the project, like everyone. And then we have the community members, people who use the project. They might be active in the conversation or express their opinion on the project direction. So these are the couple of things, the couple of structure we have in the open source. All the open source have the same structure. First is author, owner, maintainer, contributor, and community member. So understand about all of this. So like, bigger project may also have a sub communities or working groups focus on a different tasks, such as tooling, triggering, community moderations, and event organizing. So look on a project website for a team page. Okay, so every single repository has a team page where you can have a look, or in the repository for governance documentation to find the information about the project and involvement of the user. So look at the documentation about the project. And every project also has a documentation. These files are usually listed in the top level of your repository. So like, there are tons of things you will find. You will find the license, you will find readme, you will find the contributing, you will find the code of conduct, you will find other documentation. So when it's come to the licensing, you can simply, by definition, every open source project must have an open source license. That's the idea you need to have. If the project does not have a license, it's not an open source. So that's thing you have to know. Let's talk about the readme. The readme is the instruction manual that's welcome new community members to the project. It explains why the project is useful and how to get started. You will find all the information in the readme. Third, we have the contributing. Whereas the readme file, people use the project contribution doc help people contribute to the project. It explains what type of contributions are needed and how the project works. While not every project has a contributing file, so that's the thing you have to keep in mind. Now comes the code of conduct. The code of conduct set group rules to participate, behavior, association to help to facilitate a friend, welcoming environment. While not every project has a code of conduct, that's the one thing you have to keep in mind. So if you go to the open source project, you will find that some of them will have, some of them will not have. Mainly you will find all of this in a bigger project, not on the small project. So that's the thing. And the last one we have is the documentation, other documentation. There might be additional documentation such as tutorial, walkthrough, or governance policy, especially a bigger project. Like if I talk about the Astro doc, like they have all of this. So once you understand all of this, then move to the next step of our open source. Like open source project are use the following tools to organize discussion. Reading through the archive will give you a good picture of how the community thinks about the work. So that will help you. So learn about the issue tracker where people discuss issue related to the project. Learn about the pull request where the people discuss the review change that are in process, whether it is improve contributor line of a code, gamer use, grammar use of image, etc. Some of the project, like if you talk about the MDN web docs, you can have a look on that and you can perform certain auctions if you really want to become a valuable contributor. Then focus on the third step, like discuss forum and mailing list. Like some project may use this channel for conversational topics. After that, you have to learn about the synchronous and chat channels. So you might be thinking that what it is. Like some project use chat channels. So like we have a discords, we have multiple forum, we have a group. So try to be a part of that, because every single channel have a different tone of representation. So like some channel have a formal way of, some have a casual, some have a code one. So you have to understand. So when you understand all of the things about a project, you will know that how you can present yourself in each one of the channel, and that will going to give you a good advantage when you will pitch any idea. When you try to contribute, your idea is going to be listened by other contributor members or the higher authority in the organization of that particular repository. So these are the things which you can use it to identify and represent yourself in best possible manner in the open source contribution. So I hope you guys have got a complete idea that how you can scan the anatomy of any open source project and become ready before you start contributing into the project. So hope you guys have got an idea that how you can represent yourself in a best possible manner, what are things you have to keep in mind, how to get the information about the open source, what are the channels we can introduce, what are the things we have to look on to understand the tone. And that's the only thing I want to cover in this video. Hope you guys have found this video valuable. So in the next video, we're going to cover the next topic, that finding a project to contribute. So that's going to be a very important topic which you have to know. So let's move to that. I believe that after following the last 4 videos, you guys have understood that how open source project exactly work. Now it's time to find out a project to contribute. So if you are never contributed to an open source before, take some advice from US President John Franklin. Once he said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So this is the thing you have to keep in mind when you want to contribute in any open source project. So with that motive, we're going to go ahead into this video. So contributing to open source project happen at all levels. You don't need to overthink what exactly your contribution will be or how it will look. Instead, start by thinking about the project you already use in your day-to-day life. The project you actively contribute are the ones you find yourself coming back over and over again. Within those projects, whenever you catch yourself thinking that something could be better or different, act upon that instantly. That's the opportunity for you to contribute in that project. So open source isn't an exclusive club. It's made by people just like you. Open source is just a fancy term for treating the world's problem as fixable. You can scan a README file and find a broken link or a typo, or you are a new user and you notice something is broken or an issue that you can think should be really be in that documentation. So instead of ignoring and moving on or asking someone else to fix it, see whether you can help out by pitching it. So that's what open source is all about. According to the study conducted by Agro and the computer science researchers, what they have found that 28% of casual contribution to an open source documentation, such as typo fix, reformatting, or writing translations. So if you are looking for existing issue you can fix, every open source project has a contribute page that highlight beginner friendly issue you can start. Navigate to the main page of the repository on GitHub and add contribute at the end of the URL, for example, just like this. You can also use one of the following resources to help you discover and contribute new project. Like just simply go to the GitHub, explore open source Friday, first timer only, code trigger, 24 pull requests, up for grab, first contribution, source sort, open squared. So these are the couple of examples which I have given to all of you guys, which you can have a look and try to understand the architecture which you can easily able to fix, and these are the beginner friendly. So now you have got the idea that what are the things which you have to keep in mind and how you can simply contribute and find a project. Now let's talk about the quick checklist which you have to keep in mind before you start contributing into the project. So here I have a checklist for all of you which you guys can have a look before you start to become a contributor. So first thing we have in the list is that meet the definition of open source. Does it have license? Usually there is a file called license in the root of the repository if it's open source. That's the first checklist. The second checklist you have to focus in that project actively accept contributions. There you have to focus on few things. First thing you have to focus is that when was the last commit. The second thing we have to focus that how many contributors does the project have, and the third one is that how often do people commit into that project. So these are the 3 checklists you have to do in the contribution. Once you're done with that, now you have to look on the project issue, that what are the issue project has. So how many open issues are there? Because they have the forum where the users are asking about the issue in the repository. So check the open issue. Then do maintainer response quickly to issue when they are open. So whenever someone is maintaining the repository, they respond to that particular error. That's the second check you have to do. The third check you have to do is that is there active discussion on that issue. The fourth check you have to do is that are the issue is recent. And the last one, you have to focus that are issues getting closed or not. So once you do all of this 5 check, then you have to move to the next level, and where you have to focus on the project pull request. In that you have to focus few things, that how many pull requests are there. Like, do maintainer response quickly to pull requests when they are open? Is there active discussions on the pull request? Are the pull requests recent? How recently were a pull request merged? So you have to understand all of this 5 point. Once you understand about the project issue, then move to the pull request, and that you have to cover all of this 5. Once you're done with that, after that you have to look at the project welcoming, because not all the open source will have a welcoming to the new contribution. So you have to look up at their guidelines. In that you have to do 4 check. So first check is that do maintainer response helpful to question in the issue. That's the first one. After that you have to focus on the are people friendly in the issue discussion forum and chat. Then you have to focus on the do pull requests get review. Do maintainer thanks people for their contribution. That's the welcome thing you have to focus on. So these are the few things you have to focus before you start contributing. I gave you the couple of lists. Make sure to do the check of all those open source projects and must follow this checklist before you contribute. Check all this checklist, and after that start working around this open source. So with that, I'm done with this particular topic, that how you can find a project to contribute. Hope you guys have got an understanding that what architecture you have to follow and how you have to proceed ahead before you actually write a single piece of code or do any contribution in the project. With that, I'm going to move to the next video. In that, we're going to learn about that how you can submit your contribution, because that's a very important topic which you have to know. With that, let's move to the next video. Hey all of you, hope you guys are great. Welcome back once again to this complete playlist of open source contribution. In the last video, we have learned about that how we can find out the right project, and we have seen couple of checklists which we have to cover when we are finding the project for open source contribution. In this video, we're going to learn about that how you can submit contribution to the forum. So you have found a project and you want to contribute. So what are the steps you have to follow and how you have to approach in the submitting your contribution? So first thing I want to say that you have to communicate effectively. Whether you are one-time contributor or trying to join the community, working with other developer is one of the most important skills you will develop when you will work in open source. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind. So there are a few things I want to highlight which will give you the context that what should be your approach and how you can ask questions. So before you open any issue or pull request, so I'm going to use this terminology, these keywords, because I have explained you in the previous video that what is issue, what is pull request. That's all I have covered. So if you are not following the complete playlist, make sure to follow that. It will give you the context of the keywords and the communication type we are using in this playlist. Okay. So before you open any issue or pull request or ask question in the chat, keep these points in your mind to help your idea come across actively in the community platform. So first thing you have to do is you have to give context to other developer, and that will help you to speed up the entire process. So if you are running into an error, explain what you are trying to do and how to reduce it. If you are suggesting a new idea, explain why do you think it would be useful to the project, not just only for you, how it will help other developer who have that particular technology. So you can give this particular 2 examples, like X doesn't happen when I do Y. So you can explain about it. And one more example I can give, which you don't need to add something like that, like X is broken, please fix it. You can't communicate like this in the contribution platform. You have to give them context that why it's not working. So that's the first thing, that you have to give the right context in the contribution platform. Then comes the second step. Do your homework before you do anything in the platform. It's okay not to know things, but Show that you have tried at least. Before asking for help, be sure to check a project README file, documentation, issue. And that's the most common problem I have found in most of the new developers. They have come across an issue, and maybe there is no issue in the project. Maybe there is a variable changes, but they don't look at the documentation. They simply ask the question in the forum. People will appreciate when you will demonstrate that you are trying to learn here. So you can ask something like that: I'm not sure how to implement X. I checked the docs and I didn't find any mentions. So this is how you can ask question and give them context that what you have done, but how it's not working. You can't say something like that, how do I X? So what you're not providing any context. You are not explaining that what you have done, what effort you have taken from your end before asking the questions. So it's a bad approach. So that's the second thing you have to keep in mind. First, give context. Second, do your homework. Try to do your research. Find the docs, recheck the README file, and search on Google's. Do all of these things. After that, pitch your questions. So now the third thing we have is that keep requests short and direct. Because no one has the time to read the entire letter or essay. You have to keep things short. It's just like sending an email. For example, that you can type something like that: I would like to write an API tutorial. That's very simple. You can give the context. You can tell your request that I want to write an API tutorial. You can write something like that I was driving down the highway the other day and stopped from a gas, and then I had this amazing idea for something we should be doing. But before I explain that, let me show you. You can't do this. You can't give you the entire context that how you got that idea. You can simply pitch your idea that what you want. Be the point. Okay, so that's the third thing you have to keep in mind. After that, and the fourth thing you have to keep in mind, that you have to keep all your communication public. Although it's tempting, don't reach out to maintainer privately unless you need to share sensitive information. When you keep the conversation public, more people can learn and benefit from your exchange. So they can discuss among themselves, and even they can contribute in your suggestion. So try to keep your requests, try to keep your thoughts public in an open platform. Don't try to keep it private. Hope you guys have got a context that what you have to do in the fourth step. So first we have to give context. Second, we have to do our own research. Third, we have to write our message very short, to the point. And fourth thing is that we have to keep our communication public so other can identify. And the fifth point we have in the list is be patient. It's okay to ask questions. Everybody was new to the project at some point. Even experienced contribution need to get some speed when they look at a new project. Even long-term maintainers are not always familiar with every part of the project. So you have to show them the same patience that you would want to show to you. Got it? So be patient. When you will ask question, it will take some time to get response. Be patient during that. So I can give you one more example. I can say that thanks for looking into my error. I follow your suggestion. Here's that output. Short, simple, and you explain that what you have got. You can't say that why can't you fix my problem. You can never say that because he's not reliable for fixing your issue. You are using his tool and you are demanding him to fix your issue. That's not the way to approach. So be patient. And that's what I have found. Like whatever project we have built on the channel, I have seen that many of you have encountered error and there is no problem in the code. Maybe you have some typo, maybe you have installed the wrong version, and you guys tell me the way you command me that don't fix this issue. Like you have hired me personally to work on your project. That's not how things work. Okay, so you have to be patient, you have to be request, you have to give the entire context and be patient. It will take little time, but definitely things will be okay. So that's the fifth thing you have to keep in mind. And after that, your idea may be different from the community priorities or vision. If you disagree with their direction, you can always work on your own fork or start your own project. You have that option. If you think that your idea is valid, you can do that and you can start working on that. And if you build something bigger on that, then definitely if they consider that you have added something valuable, they're going to help you in that. This is unacceptable. So you can't give this kind of command to the user. You can say that I am disappointed you can't support my use case, but as you have explained, it only affect a minor portion of my user. I understand why. Thanks for listening. In this message, in this way of explaining your feedback, you can display your emotions and you can also let them know that this is the reason why you're not doing it. But you are saying that I appreciate that you have listened at least to my thought. So this kind of message you have to say. You can't command someone that why you are not doing it is unacceptable. Because they are not reliable on your thoughts. Like you think they have the different architecture, different motive. So that's kind of things you have to keep in mind. One thing you have to understand that open source is made up of collaborators from around the world. So communication makes it harder to convey a tone or mood. So ensure good intention in this conversation which you will have. It's fine to polite pause back on an idea, ask for more context or further clarify. So keep it classic. Try to understand all of these different cultures which are there, because you are not the one who's part of that project. Multiple region involved, multiple mindset involved, multiple behaviors involved, and they have the different interest. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind, because when you will take the classy approach, you will be a lighting spot in that entire project, and your idea will be taken ahead and it will create a good impact on that. So these are the 7 most important points which you have to keep in mind when it's come to submitting your contributions. So these are the messages you have to keep in mind, that how you have to approach, how you have to give the message, and how you can propose your contribution. So before I end this video, I want to talk about one more point. Before you submit your context, you have to gather context. I hope you guys have got the point that what I mean by that. Before doing anything, do a quick check to make sure your idea hasn't been discussed elsewhere. Check the project README file, mailing list, Stack Overflow. You don't have to spend hour going through everything, but a quick search for a few key terms goes a long way. So that's the first thing you have to do. If you can't find your idea elsewhere, you are ready to make move. If the project is on the GitHub, you would likely to communicate by doing the following. Like, you can raise an issue in the project. There is a like stream conversation of discussion which is going on in the project repository, or you can pull requests or start working on that, or you can create a communication channel if the project has a designated Discord, and you can check the communication channel like Discord server where they have talk about your ideas or not. So these are the few things you have to check. This will give you the context about the submit you want to commit in the open source contributions. So before you open an issue or pull a request, check the project contribution talk to see whether you need to include anything specific. For example, they ask you to follow a specific template to make a submit your request. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind. So if you want to make an impactful contribution in the project, first open an issue, ask before you're working on. It's helpful to watch project repository on GitHub, check the community members, and then step into the contribution and do all of the things which I have mentioned. All of these things will give you the proper context, and then you can submit your request. So this is how you can submit your contribution on open source. So I hope you guys have got an idea that what are the steps you have to follow, what tone you have to pick, and how you can gather the context before you submit in the contribution. So that's the only thing I want to cover in this video. Hope you guys have got the context that how you can submit your contribution and what are the steps you have to follow and how you can gather context. So with that said, I'm going to move to the next topic, and it's going to be the last topic in our playlist. In that, we're going to focus that what happens after you submit your contribution, how the entire process take place in the open source repository, how the contribution get verified and get interacted with the developer. That's all we're going to cover in the next video. So let's move to that. Hey everyone, hope all of you are doing great. So this is the last video of our open source contributions, and in this we're going to learn about that what happens after you submit your contribution. In the last video we have learned about that how to submit a contribution. If you haven't watched the video, make sure to watch. I'll link in the I button on the description, or you can follow the complete playlist in that we have all the videos. Before you start celebrating, one of the following will happen after you submit your contribution. You will get selected and your proposal will be appreciated. Sometime what happened that you don't get response. Hopefully you check the project for signing or activity before making the contributions. Even on an active project, however, it's possible that your contribution won't get response. If you haven't gotten a response in a week, it's fair to politely respond in the same thread, asking someone for a review. If you know the name of the right person to review your contribution, you can mention the name in that thread. And the thing which you don't need to do here is that don't reach out to the person privately. Remember that public communication is vital to open source project. If you give a polite reminder and still do not receive a response, it's possible that nobody will ever respond. It's not a great feeling, but don't let that discourage you. There are many possible reasons that why you didn't get the response, including personal circumstances that may be out of your control. Try to find out another project, and because of that, I would suggest you, it's not a good idea to invest too much time. So that's the first general response you will have. But if you get a response and they ask you to do the change in the contribution, it's common that you will be asked to make the change to your contributions if you have found out. And if you don't have time to work on the issue anymore, then you can give your valid reason that I don't have time and I cannot able to do the contribution. And the third thing you have to notice that what happened when your contribution is not get accepted. So we have seen that when it's get accepted and when they ask you to make the changes, what are things you have to do. If you are interested, you can do, otherwise you can give them valid reason that why you're not able to do that. But what if your contribution not get accepted? Like your contribution may or may not be accepted in the end. Hopefully you didn't put too much work in it already. If you are not sure why it wasn't accepted, it's perfectly reasonable to ask the maintainer or for the feedback or clarification. However, you have to respect their decision that why they have not selected you. Don't argue with them. You are always welcome to fork and work on your own version of your like the trajectory. Like you can simply fork it and you can make and work. The last one is that if your contribution get accepted, then you have to be very happy, very proud that you have found a bug, you have done all of this research and you made a valuable contribution in the project. And that's what you can include in your portfolio. So these are the few things happen once your project gets submitted, and what are the response you can get. First response you might not get. Second, you get response and they ask you to do the contribution, so you can follow according to that. The third one is if your contribution not get accepted, then what are the things you have to do. I hope you guys have got clear. And if it got accepted, then you can add that in your portfolio and start finding out the company and let them know that you have made this contribution. And that's a really proud moment for you. So hope you guys have gotten a complete idea that what are the steps you have to follow if you really want to contribute into the project, how you can find one, how you can make the contribution, how you can make the request, what are the checks you have to follow. We have covered so many things, everything about the open source project contribution, and if you follow this step by step which I have explained in the entire playlist, you will be the master of any open source project, and you can easily able to understand that what is the demand of the project and what benefit you can get from that particular project. So that's the only thing I want to cover in this particular video. Hope you guys have got an idea that what are things you have to do, and if you have any issue, any problem regarding any project which you are getting, make sure to leave in the comment section, or if you have any idea for any particular course, do let me know. And make sure to follow the playlist, the project we have on our channel. We have 30 plus ready to deploy project which we have built from scratch to deployment level. So make sure to follow all of this project. That will give you a very vital idea that how exactly application get built in the real world and how you can build different application dab or use the different library. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this entire playlist and you guys know what you have to do and how you have to take your steps and how you can contribute and be the smartest developer in all the time in every single library and become the smartest developer and take your skills to the next level. With that, I'm ending this video. If you are new to my channel, hit like and subscribe. That will motivate me, and do give your feedback about this playlist. I really appreciate that. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.